Brought to you by 1AAuto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet.
Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. I hope this how-to video helps you out. And please, next time you need parts for your vehicle, think of 1AAuto.com. In this video, we're going to show you how to replace a full solid rear backing plate on this 2002 Chevy Suburban. And it's pretty much the same for these Suburbans from 2002 to 2006, as well as the Tahoes and Yukons. And the procedure is the same from left to right. In fact, you'll see that we kind of do some procedures on one side and other procedures on the other side.
And the items you'll need for this is a new rear backing plate from 1A Auto and this assortment of tools. Start off by loosening up these lug nut covers. And we'll fast forward as Don does this. And once those are all loosened up, you can pull the hubcap free. And now you want to loosen the lug nuts preliminarily, raise the vehicle and remove them the rest of the way. Unless you have air-powered tools, you can do it well. Now remove these two 12mm bolts. And we'll fast forward as Don does that. Now use a large C-clamp. You just put it on this end, on the back of the caliper, and on this brake pad, and just twist it in. And this is going to push the caliper piston in and make it easier to pull the caliper up and off. And then remove the large C-clamp. Pull the caliper free and set it aside. Now remove these two 18mm bolts and just use a piece of pipe to help break it free. And then we'll just fast forward as Don removes those two bolts. Now pull your caliper bracket off. Pull the rotor off.
Okay, you may not have this problem on your vehicle. Our vehicle's a Northeast kind of Rust Belt vehicle, so we use a cold chisel to kind of clean up the edges of the bolts. These are 13mm bolts, but after we clean them up, a 1/2" socket works best to get them off. So we clean them up with the cold chisel first. And then again, as I said, 1/2" socket, knock it on there, and you can get the bolts out. Okay, and fast forward here, and if necessary, repeat that procedure, or if you're lucky enough to have a vehicle that's not all rusty and crusty, just use your 13mm socket ratchet and remove all those bolts. You'll want to leave the top one loose but still in.
Make sure you have a drip pan below the differential cover before you remove the last of the bottom bolts. And you want to just remove those. Now using your chisel, just hammer out on the bottom of the diff cover. And then replace the bolt at the top of the differential cover. And then use your chisel and hammer again on the other side. And just let the fluid drain out. Now after it's drained for a while, just pry out on the bottom and then remove that bolt. And then pull the cover down and out. Now, if any debris falls down inside of here, as you can see right there, you just want to vacuum all of it out. And then take a rag, make sure it's somewhat clean, and just wipe everything down, and just stick this rag back in there. And then using a razor blade, just cut off that old gasket along the outside. And then just use a wire brush to get any leftover residue of the gasket.
And for the next step, you'll probably want to put the vehicle in neutral. Rotate the drive shaft till you can see this 8mm bolt. Put the vehicle back in park, and then use a 8mm wrench to remove that bolt. Okay, then remove the bolt, and then there's a pin that runs through the middle of the rear end there. Push it in a little bit just to get it going, and then push it out from the other side. Remove it. That pin allows the axles to go in, so push the axles in, and then you'll rotate your rear gear set again so you can see into the rear end. And you see here there's a clip on the end of the rear end. You push the axle in and then use a stick magnet to get that clip, that C-clip out. And then once that C-clip's removed, you can pull your axle right out. There are clips that hold the emergency brake into the bracket. I'm using screwdrivers, push one up onto the clip and push one down on the clip, and then release those clips, and then you can pull it out and slide it to the side.
And then disconnect it. And then you want to just pry up on your brake shoes. And then pry out and just pull them free. And then just remove these 4 bolts. And we'll just fast forward as Mike does this. Now you can pull the old backing plate away. And you want to just wipe down the area here with a wire brush just to clean it up.
Okay, and as you can tell, on the left is the new backing plate from 1A Auto, and on the right is what remains of the original backing plate. No mystery as to why we're replacing them. Okay, and you'll want to, actually I realized right after I forgot to do it here, that there's a rubber boot that you put on around the arm and then install your emergency brake actuator into the backing plate and then onto the axle. And replace and tighten up those 4 bolts.
And now torque these to 90 foot-pounds.
To reconnect the emergency brake cable, first connect it into the lever on the emergency brake actuator, and then you want to separate or pull the spring back until you can see a little bit of the cable. Run the cable through the bracket, and then once you get the cable through the bracket, then force the housing of the cable into the bracket. And then reinstall your shoes just by kind of spreading them apart a little bit and getting them onto the backing plate, hook them into the hook that's at the top or the bottom, and then get them on their actuators. Reinstall your axle, and you want to be careful not to damage the seal, so lift up as you're sliding the axle in so that you don't damage the axle seal. And then once you get it most of the way in, you'll feel it hit the inner workings of the axle. You just gotta move it up and down and try and get it, move it up and down and twist at the same time to get it in. And once it goes in fairly easily. Make sure the axle is pushed all the way in, and then reinstall the C-clip on the end of the axle. And with the vehicle in neutral, you'll want to turn the gear set so that you can get the pin back in. And pull the axle out. Make sure that everything's lined up through that hole. And reinstall the retaining pin for the axles. And the hole needs to be at the bottom, actually, obviously. And once you have that in, then put that 8mm bolt back in and tighten it up. And here you can see we're using a new differential cover. This differential cover came with a gasket, so I'm just putting a very light bead of RTV on it. Obviously, if you're using your old cover, just follow the directions on the RTV or whatever gasket you might use. Put it up into place, put the top bolt through, and start the top bolt in. We'll fast forward here as we just start the rest of the bolts in. Make sure you put your brake line clamp or clip in place. And what we do is we just kind of firmly tighten each of the bolts, let the RTV set up, and then torque the bolts to 15 foot-pounds.
Now remove this filler plug using your 3/8 ratchet, and ours is in kind of rough condition, so we're just going to hammer the ratchet into place. And then just remove that plug. Now replace the differential fluid, and you want to just do this until it starts to pour over the side. And when it starts to pour over the side, you can just put your pinky in there and make sure that the fluid's right to the top of the filler hole. And if it is, then you're all set, and you can replace your cap. Now just tighten it up with your ratchet. And you're all set.
If you're reusing your old rotor, you want to make sure that you scrape any rust scale from the inner edge of the braking surface, as well as from the edge of the emergency brake surface. If you don't do this, it's a good bet that some of the scale will hit against the new backing plate and make a squeaking noise. And usually the squeaking noise will go away over time, even if you get a little bit of a squeaking from the new backing plates. Okay, and you can see here we're using new rotors, also available at 1aauto.com. Install the rotor, and we put a lug nut on there just to hold it in place while we put the rest of the brakes together.
And then put your caliper bracket back into place and replace those two 18mm bolts. You're gonna have to back. And we'll fast forward as Don tightens those up. And you want to torque these to about 85 foot-pounds. Push your brake pads back into place. Back up. And then put your caliper back down into place. And replace those two 12mm bolts. And we'll just fast forward as Don does this and tightens them up. And you want to tighten these to about 30 foot-pounds. Put your wheel back into place. And then replace your lug nuts and tighten them preliminarily. And we'll fast forward as Don does this. Now you want to torque each of the lug nuts to 120 foot-pounds, and it is going to take a while, and then reduce them to 100 foot-pounds. Then replace that hubcap and tighten up each of your lug nut covers. And before taking the vehicle out on the road, you want to just pump the brake pedal until it firms up, and then do a stopping test from 5 miles per hour, then 10 miles per hour, and you're all set.
We hope this video helps you out. Brought to you by 1aauto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet. Please feel free to call us toll-free, 888-844-3393. We're the company that's here for you on the internet and in person.